Hello and welcome into another episode of the Fourth and Goal podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Drew, along with Rob. As you can tell, my voice is a little bit hoarse, but that's because something that happened on the weekend that hasn't happened in about 30 plus years, and that is the Lions winning a playoff game, so I'm doing pretty well. Rob, how are you doing, my friend?
Congratulations, sir. The Lions of Detroit have won a playoff football game in 32 years? I don't think you were on this earth. My
Nope.
Steelers weren't as fortunate, but man, what a super wild card weekend, eh?
It was, I feel like the Lions-Rams was the only truly close game. The others kind of felt like they were done midway through the third. I don't know how you felt about it. I thought it was like, there was a lot of really impressive teams, but it really seemed like it was always one side of the ball.
And really, like the third quarter, a lot of these games, kind of first half, you had already decided. Like the Bucks were the Eagles heading into halftime with no luck. The Steelers made a go of it in the second half, but really had blown that game early in the first. And the Cowboys also made a run in the second half, but that was almost garbage time the entire half. So I agree. There were a lot of great storylines, and as we'll get to, a lot of news and notes around the NFL, but the actual action on the field was a little bit tepid, so to speak.
Yeah, like, as again, great performances, great individual performances. Like, I'm sure we'll talk about some of those first-year starters who showed the fuck out, but it really seemed like it was one side of the ball, with the exception of that Lions-Rams game, that was an all-time great game. That was so much fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I can't wait to hear your take on that. But let's dive into news and notes, because we do have a packed agenda, and I think we must start with Bill Belichick, no longer a New England football Patriot. What do you think?
Yeah, well, we talked about this last week that we both would have kept him around. I did appreciate what Robert Kraft said in the press conference when he let him go. You and I talked about, maybe you take away the GM duty, and how Robert Kraft was like, no, Bill Belichick has earned the right to do everything. We don't want him to do everything, so we have to let him move on. I was like, okay, that's a reasonable argument. You're actually saying we respect him too much to ask him to do that. So I get it. I can somewhat get it.
I actually like that too, and I think if you're Belichick, it avoids you a disgrace, a little bit of like a demotion or a bit of a so to speak, of like, you're still the GOAT, but like, we don't think you got it anymore. And these elements is almost a bigger slap in the face than being like, look, we've had a good run, go about your life, we're gonna go about. It's almost an amicable relationship, like boyfriend girlfriend separating, being like, this was a good run, look what we did together, but we have lives to live now.
Yeah. And so, we'll see where Belichick goes. He interviewed with the Falcons, but I have a feeling that's not where he's going to end up. I think it's going to be... Yeah, it's Chargers, I think, are up in there. It's Chargers, it's Belichick or Harbaugh. And that's probably the most attractive coaching job out there, in my opinion, just because you get Herbert, you get a pretty good offense, you get some good players on defense, you can mold that team.
Yeah, given the fact Herbert's not a good quarterback, but everyone else seems to think he is, and perhaps it was just a coaching situation. I think, like I've said a lot of times on this cast, I think he looks like a great quarterback. He has all the attributes. It's a little Trevor Lawrence-y. Is this guy any good? Who knows?
Yeah, but Justin Herbert actually carries a team. Trevor Lawrence is like, you miss a lot of things you should hit.
True. And I maybe Bill Belichick turns that team around. I just can't imagine him in LA coaching for the Chargers. It's just such a soft franchise. And Bill Belichick's such a hard curmudgeon, right? That I just don't see that culture mixing. But that I do see the logical football fit for him there. Actually more than Atlanta, maybe, or Carolina. Titans possibly, but their personnel is a little sketchy. And after the whole falling out with Vrabel, I think he would probably has his reservations about going there, right?
The big one, a lot of people talking about, obviously, is the Cowboys. And we'll get into what happened to the Cowboys, but a lot of people are expecting Mike McCarthy to be moved on. And if that coaching job opens up, you've got to imagine Bill Belichick is the heavy favorite to take that spot.
I like that a lot, actually. That's fun. Jerry Jones, Bill Belichick, football, America's team. That's a fun media.
That is the evil empire circus. Of all evil empires. It's like, how can we make the Cowboys more hated? Bring the head coach from the other most hated team.
Yeah, it's that or like get rid of the cheerleaders, and then it's like, okay, we're done here. This is no longer. Those are the only two things you can do that would possibly make that team more hated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But sticking in New England, Mayo takes over. Was that? I mean, that was pretty much chalk, right?
Yeah, it sounds like that was literally written into Bill Belichick's contract that Mayo was the kind of next guy up. And it sounds like that's not a new thing. That it was also the case with Josh McDaniels, which is why he ended up not taking the Indy job last minute. That's a little bit hearsay, but that's what it sounds like, is that Belichick has had the succession plan written into his contract for years.
That's interesting. Who do you think wrote the succession plan? Him, right?
Yeah, I think he gets Robert Kraft's approval when he says this is my guy.
Right, right.
But I definitely
Right.
think there's something in there where he's like, yeah, it sounds like this is contractually obligated as much as anything, which is why it was so fast. Because like literally a day later, and Vrabel was available, yet all of a sudden it was Gerard
I
Mayo.
thought Vrabel was a good fit for them, right? Especially Vrabel. I guess part of the reasons why he was ousted from the Titans is he was clamoring for a bit more power, a bit more control over the organization, and some horrendous communications between him and the owner. I don't know if you've been reading up on that at all. And so
I've
I
heard
thought that
some
would be a
stuff.
good fit to go back to New England, where Kraft might give him that level of control, where he's got some history there, obviously. But for now, he remains a free agent, but I don't think that lasts very long either.
No, no, and we talked about Belichick being gone. Another big name coach that's gone is Pete Carroll, and it seems like the end of an era there. He was literally the New England coach before Belichick. Random facts.
I mean, goodbye, good riddance. As you know, fucking don't like the guy. He's USC. He didn't hand the ball over to Oakland's finest, Marshawn Lynch. I think he's been cursed ever since that play call because you just didn't have the cojones to win the game the way you were supposed to. I know you think that was a great call somehow, but it was an awful call. And so, good riddance, Pete Carroll. Nobody's gonna miss you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the coach
A little harsh.
A little harsh. The coaching carousel's in full swing. I think Pete Carroll still wants to coach. I think he'll get a job. Bill Belichick still wants to coach. I think he'll get a job.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh seems like he is done with college football because of NIL, which is the same reason why Nick Saban retired from Alabama. I mean,
Is that documented though?
pretty.
The day that's why they left?
That's why they're leaving / want to leave. And I get it. It's because when you are a top coach with a top program, it used to be, hey, come here. We make NFL talent. We win national championships. We do all this, and guys come. But now that money's
Right.
involved, it has nothing to do with the coach anymore. Little to do with the coach. It's how much are your boosters going to pay? Michigan, I thought, would have
Yeah.
had the money, but
Yeah.
Alabama, like the problem with Alabama is I don't know how rich of boosters they have. Absolutely, they have the passionate fan base. No one is doubting that. But at
Right,
the end of the day, if you don't have the boosters that are paying into these NIL collectives, you're not going to get the best players anymore.
Like a UCLA, USC, you need a school in which people have gone on to do really great things globally and in the money-making endeavors, which I'm not too sure about Alabama. No offense to the Great South. But the part I thought that might keep them around, well, two things. I agree that, like, it's hard to build a team when certain players are making more than others, and there's, like, other incentives and motives that drive these players besides what you said, making it to the league and winning championships. But I do like the idea that some of these players, like Caitlin Clark's a great example of this over in Iowa, where she's like, I don't want to go to the WNBA because here in Iowa, I get paid and they make butter sculptures of me and like I'm an absolute legend everywhere I go. If I enter the WNBA, what is that? Right. And so there is an incentive for people to stay in college now because of the NIL. Archie Manning's another example of that. Right. So part of me thought that would be an incentive for these coaches to stay because they get these players longer. But then you have maybe the Calipari approach where it's like, come to Kentucky, get paid, go to the NBA. We don't really care if you stick around or if we win. So it is a bit. I think Calipari is well suited for the NIL. It's just a little side.
Yeah, I mean, NIL's a whole beast. We could spend a full podcast plus talking about NIL, but there seems to be a lot of changes happening, and we'll update you as we hear. But let's move on. The last thing in news and notes: Jason Kelsey calling it quits. It sounds like it's not official. He has not said it, but the rumor is
I saw it being official like an hour ago. The Associated Press like put a headline grabber out there.
A lot of people have said it happened, that he's told his teammates, but he has not told a media source.
True.
That's
Agreed.
It's not official.
Okay, fair. You know what? 13 years at center at the top of the game is a very difficult position. His play was not excellent in this game. He had really bad snaps. He was getting beat all day long. Maybe he just, he was probably contemplating this well ahead of the game, but I think that game might have just solidified in his mind that, you know what, he doesn't have it anymore. A lot of these players, when they lose that edge, they just quit sooner than later, and he's got a big career ahead of him outside the game. That's not going to be, you know what I mean? He's going to just go Pat McAfee on us a little bit and then just be all over our television screens. So I think those are the kind of things. I also think Travis might retire too. Maybe not this year.
I'm the same. I think,
you know what?
I wouldn't be surprised to see them both go out. They're both going downhill, and that's not a knock on them. They are 36 and 34 years old, respectively. Right. They have aged as gracefully as anyone does in the NFL. Besides maybe Tom Brady.
Right.
Yeah. So this is not a knock on them. This is not a knock on their careers. They are both probably Hall of Famers when all is said and done. But yeah, they got other endeavors. They got other things to do. And I wish the best for them. I think Jason Kelce has planned this for a while. I think he would have done it last year had they won the Super Bowl. Like the Kelce documentary that came out, he even talks about that documentary was supposed to be a football player transitioning to retirement. And it just lasted for so long that they had to release it before he actually retired.
I didn't know that, but that checks out. That checks out. Yeah, I mean, you could see it. You could see it in his like body posture and his motions after the game, where he was just like, "This is it, right? This is the end of my time on this field." And I don't think Brady. I don't think he comes back from this retirement.
No,
he's done. He's done. I think Travis joins him.
I
think he goes and follows Tate off into the wilderness and has a good time.
Because I think them both going at the same time, their podcast does really well. They can go and make this podcast, as you said, a Pat McAfee show, and they have every ability to do that. And Travis retiring is the only thing preventing it right now because they can't do every day. But yeah, so let's go on to our weekly recap because that was a long news and notes. I know there was a lot of stuff going on. In our weekly recap, I think the best way to do it is to go by the games and kind of talk about where do we bucket the losers. Do we bucket them as, hey, well done, it wasn't too great, or this is ugly, this is bad. So good, bad, and ugly of the losers while talking about the game. So let's start at the top with the Packers and Cowboys. How do you feel about that game?
Well, it depends whose side you're on, but ugly as fuck for the Cowboys and glorious for those Green Bay Packers, who, again, one of these teams I don't think anyone even had making the playoffs, let alone doing anything, making any noise in the playoffs. I know I picked against them like an idiot this week. And Jordan Love went out there and made a statement. I think a lot of people, myself included, were uncertain. This is one of the teams that I felt like I had trouble picking for or against all year. And, I mean, they're playing some smash mouth football. They can run the ball with Aaron Jones now. You got these young wide receivers who are making plays. Jordan Love seemed real comfortable and real confident in that pocket. And the defense absolutely took it to Dacky Boy and CD. And impressive win for the Packers. But, man, do these Cowboys need to do some soul searching all over the place. Pollard couldn't run the ball. Anyone besides C making any plays. Dak looked like Dak eyes. Like this kid, I don't know what his problem is, but big moments. He just doesn't. We've been waiting for the Dallas Cowboys collapse all season, right? One of these games supposed to do it, didn't, and it happened in the biggest moment.
Yeah, we got most of that. A little bit of cutting in and out there, but we got most. I think we got the gist of what you were saying, but I'm in agreement. This is really, really bad for the Dallas Cowboys. Like, this is a team that's designed to win now, and you can't even win a playoff game. That's brutal when you're the 2 seed at home. You hadn't lost at home in forever. That was supposed to be the massive home field advantage. Packers, it's great for, but like, this game wasn't close. This wasn't like you got beat by a team that played really well. This was like, yeah, they played really well, but you played like shit all game. Like, Dak couldn't connect with CeeDee Lamb anymore. The defense couldn't stop a damn thing. Like, just brutal. So, yeah, I agree. This is ugly.
Dude, that Dak CD Lamb connection was so off. Even the announcers kept commentating on it. It was just like they weren't making good. I don't know how you can be so in sync all season long and then just be that disheveled that quickly too. It's not like they had it. They put it together at some point. It was like from the get go, those two are out of sync. And if they're not in sync, that team obviously. I felt a little kill Dolphin vibes, where it's like if CD's not the guy making plays, that team looks real castrated.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of the Dolphins, let's move on to that game. Dolphins and Chiefs. What's your take on Dolphins and Chiefs?
Well, I think we kind of had their number, the Miami Dolphins. They're bad against good teams. It was still left to be seen in my eyes if the Chiefs were still a good team, but it's Pat Mahomes in the playoffs at home. They're a good team.
Yeah.
And Miami couldn't deal with the cold. They couldn't deal with making a playbook that revolved around running the ball and playing smash mouth, accommodating to the weather and on the road. And they just were the Miami Dolphins that we always thought they were.
Yeah, they were. I think this is bad. It's not quite ugly because they still have a little bit of runway, but Tua's a UFA. They got to figure out what they want to do. Do you want to franchise tag him? Do you want to sign him long term? I don't think you want to let him walk. Like that's
He
really
threw
tough.
for the most yards in the league. It's hard to say you don't sign the guy again.
Yeah, but it's like he's gonna want like those big contracts. He's gonna want Lamar money, Hurts money, Burrow money, Herbert money, Mahomes money, Allen money, and it's like God, I don't think he's worth anywhere close to those guys based on what I saw this year. So I think it's a bit of a problem, but they're gonna have to pay him if they want to keep this team together. But like, it's not as bad as can be because this team can run it back. They got some good pieces, but they definitely got to learn from this. It's definitely not good. You definitely want it to be better, but it could have been worse because they're nowhere close to what the Cowboys were. There's a reason why there's all the memes on the internet where Tua was getting memed, and then the Cowboys happened, and then no one talked about the Dolphins after that because it's like, yeah, we all know what was worse.
And that was a tough game, right? To go into Arrowhead in the fourth coldest game ever on the road, that's just a tough game to win either way. I don't think a lot of people were too surprised about that outcome. But I agree. I put this in the bad. It was the Chiefs' win that they needed. And again, they didn't actually look that great, which we could talk about a little when we look ahead to next week. But I think what this really does for me is is Mike McDaniels actually like this genius, or is he a bit of a one pony?
Yeah, yeah. And so then let's go to Texans and Browns. Thoughts on that game and the result there?
Honestly, I was right before the game. I started feeling like, what? I think the Texans might pull this out. I placed some side money on it that ended up pretty good, just because this is the Cleveland Browns we're talking about here. This is what they do best. They lose games that they should lose because they're the Cleveland Browns and they just don't deserve nice things. I think the Flacco magic wore off a little bit. Congrats, Mar Hamlin. You might have just won the comeback player of the year. I know it's not supposed to include the playoffs, but you know how these things do. And their defense just couldn't hold up again when their offense was sputtering. And I think the real takeaway from is that DeMeco Ryans has this Texans team playing really tough. CJ Stroud might be the guy, and he's got this like uncanny ability to find Nico Collins and his guys all over the field and put the ball on a dime, on like in stride to these guys. This is a tough team, and see, I don't want to say upsetting the Ravens, but definitely giving them a run for their money.
Yeah, this is a team that looks pretty good. I think the Texans are ecstatic where they are. In terms of the Browns, I think this is bad, and it's not because this is a team that was expected to win. It's like when you lose your starting quarterback and your starting running back and you're a run-first team and you even make it to the playoffs, you should be pretty happy usually. But this is a team that Deshaun Watson's contract is about to hit ridiculous cap hit. It is fully guaranteed. It is tough to extend. Again, NFL cap is voodoo. I understand this, but at the end of the day, the Cleveland Browns are probably going to have to break apart this team to an extent, and it's tough to have to break apart a team that really hasn't done anything.
Well, I mean, two things. One, right? Like they overachieved all year, really. Like the way that they were able to battle adversity and make the playoffs was already pretty like fortuitous. So the idea that they just kind of ran out of steam and lost this game, not that big of a surprise. And two, this is Cleveland karma, man. You trade all those picks away for Deshaun Watson, the groper. All of a sudden, the young kid comes in and with all the picks that they get from the Browns, go in and take it to Cleveland, who, like you said, will now have to disassemble their team. They got no picks. Texans got a ton of picks. I love the karmic, like, just outcome that the Cleveland Browns deserve because Cleveland, you suck as a city. Sorry, Cleveland fans, but you're not even sorry. You know it's true.
Yeah, yeah. Well, oh god, rough on Cleveland. I'm sorry to you, Cleveland folk.
Sorry, their two
But
buildings might really, Is that
but
river
yeah.
still catching on fire, or have you fixed that, Cleveland?
Either way, for the Texans though, I think I started believing the Texans were going to win the second you told me how bad you and I were both at picking the Texans, and the fact that we both picked the Browns. That's when I realized, oh shit, I fucked up. That's in last
And
week's
I feel like we're
episode.
gonna pick wrong again this week too.
Well, we'll
But
see.
hey.
We'll see. We'll get there. So moving on, let's get to the last AFC game. I know you have a lot to talk about in this one. It was the Bills and Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a lot to talk about. First, glad that we made the game. Honestly, after the season that we went through, man, I thought we had a chance if we didn't just have two really god awful fumbles to start that game out. Just dropping the ball on hits that weren't even that tough. Fryermuth and Warren just both kind of got just popped and dropped the ball, and those turned around and put up 20 points, and then we were just battling from the back heel since. I thought if we could have come out and played the typical Steelers smash mouth football, that game would have been a lot closer than it ended up being. But that's a really tough Buffalo team, a really tough environment to go play in. So kudos to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, I wanted a better out. That didn't come. I put this in the good in terms of losses.
Yeah.
This team, the Bills could go on Super Bowl. The Steelers again shouldn't have even been there. The fact that we made is a testament to these out there and the Roonies and just the whole franchise, because we can just give it to any team on any given Sunday, regardless of who we plug in at quarterback. And I really think we're a couple pieces away from this being a contender. Not having TJ Watt killed us, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. I think the Steelers showed the fact that they went 10-7 again. One, Mike Tomlin is a great coach, and the fact that people are calling for his head in Pittsburgh is one of the stupidest things ever. Like most teams in the league would happily take Mike Tomlin as their coach and wouldn't look twice. Like this man hasn't had a losing season, and the team around them does not look that great on paper, and they haven't had a quarterback in years. Um,
That's an upsetting thread there, which I don't really want to go into too much. I do feel like there's some racial overtones as well, but man, it's bullshit that he's even considered on the hot seat. The only reason why I've heard that might be a legitimate reason is that he's just a little tired and wants to step away from the game after 17 years. That's one thing. But for people to
yeah,
be like, let's get a change, we need fresh blood, or he's not like he's too legit, like come on, guys. Like
no.
that upsets me more than any other like media narrative. Is this idea that somehow we want him out of Steel Town? That's fucking
And
nonsense.
and you know what? Like going into the racial things with coaches, I'm actually happy. It seems like we're starting to tick back up. Obviously, it's early, but like this past season, we had three black head coaches in the league. That's absurdly low. It was Tomlin, it was D'Amico Ryans, and it was Todd Bowles. And guess what? All three of them made the playoffs.
Made the playoffs, and two of them
Are still
made it
there.
to the next round.
Right? Like
Right.
they're incredibly
So,
impressive. But now we have Gerard Mayo in New England, which is good.
mm-hmm,
Antonio Pierce, good chance he gets the job
mm-hmm,
in Oakland
mm-hmm,
or somewhere else. So that'll be another one. And Aaron Glenn
mm-hmm.
from the Detroit Lions, defensive coordinator, has a lot of head coaching interviews. I'd hate to lose him, but hopefully he gets something and we can start to like tick this back up. Because at the end of the day, like, you know,
Right.
you look at the NFL and how it's like the executives, like presidents, I think, and GMs are actually like pretty decent. Like there's a good representative of black like GMs and presidents, but coaches,
Right.
there's like none,
Yeah.
and it's crazy.
I don't know
So
what it is. Although, shout out Max Crosby, who's straight up like, if they don't sign Antonio Pierce, I'm demanding a trade.
yeah, I
So,
appreciate that. He
yeah,
knows,
another
like,
players coach brewing over there. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. But we got two more games. We've got a lot of time on these, so let's go into the
Yeah.
NFC and let's go into the Eagles and Buccaneers, the Monday nighter, last night.
Dude, you called it. That was the upset to pick. I think we were both just trying to do it. I ended up placing a bunch of Buccaneers pluses that I just was like, why didn't you take the money line? Still cash, but I mean that Eagles team was hot flinch to end the season, right? I think they started 10-1 or something. Ended up going 1-5 to close out the year with some ugly against awful teams, and then made them have to travel on the road to Tampa Bay, where good old Baker Mayfield was just feeling himself. Good old Baker Mayfield style. And he, just like when the Browns beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs, was just somehow putting it all together and wheeling and dealing. I saw a great stat. Baker Mayfield, 2 playoff wins. The Browns in the last 40 years, 1, and he's got that win too.
And let's be very clear. That game was not as close as even the scoreline shows. I think 5 or 6 times Buccaneers receivers just got hit in the hands by Mayfield and dropped it. Like the amount of additional scores they should have had, and additional points they should have had that they did not have. Like, it was very clear who the better team was in that game. And
Baker even said it in the post-game conference. He's like, we didn't even play our best game, but their defensive line showed out too. That's something I wanted to shout out. Was just like, that's a fierce front. And if you can't do something about that, Detroit, you're going to have some issues as well, just like Philly did.
Yeah, well, all I'll say is this is ugly for the Eagles. That's what it is. This was a team that was Super Bowl or bust, and they don't even win a playoff game, and they lose 6 of the last 7 games. Heads are rolling. I think at least the 2 coordinators gone. Matt Patricia, I think, is the worst individual in football in terms of football minds. I've said it before. I'll say it again. He is horrendously bad. I don't know how he keeps getting jobs.
He's like Matt Millen bad.
He's worse. No, he is the worst. Like, I think I would.
Dude, Matt Millen built an 0-16 team. Come on,
I don't
you can't
care. No. I personally believe that I would be one of the worst coaches in NFL history just because I don't really know coaching, and I still think I could do better than Matt Patricia.
Damn, Matt Patricia catching not just strays, 50 caliber bullets straight to the abdomen from Drew here.
Yeah, Matt Patricia is fucking trash. Don't get me started on Matt fucking Patricia. But either way,
all right. Well, then let's move on. Yeah,
let's move on to Matt Patricia's old team, the Detroit Lions and the Rams. The one close game of the weekend, which is why I left it for last. Again, Rob, let me know your thoughts. Let's start with you here before I get into
No, I want to hear you take it away. I don't think there's much I can say besides that it was an electric game. I love the narratives around the Stafford and Goff coming to duke it out, and it lived up to expectations. What'd you think?
It lived up to the hype. This was the most hyped game. There was a reason it was the Sunday nighter. And I think after watching it, we all kind of sat there and said, yeah, this was far and away the best game. They put this in the right slot. The schedule makers, they did a good job this weekend because you don't get to control these games, but you sure as hell can control the placement, and they put the best game in the best slot. So I appreciate that.
Except for the whole Peacock thing, but yeah.
Yeah, but that was Saturday night. That was network shit, not schedule shit. We're gonna blame NBC on that one. But yeah, it was a great game. I love Matt Stafford. I am disappointed in Lions fans for booing him. I think Lions fans are great. I got nothing.
Yeah, he didn't deserve that.
Fan. He didn't deserve it. Don't get me wrong. He was the enemy for 3 hours. I wouldn't have cheered for him, but I wouldn't have booed him. I'm upset we booed him, but you know what? I get it. That's the mentality. It's Detroit versus everyone, and guess what? Matt Stafford now is everyone. You could tell he was upset getting booed in his post-game press conference, and I feel for him. And there's no chance he does, but Matt Stafford, if you ever see this, I'm a diehard Lions fan. I still love you, my man. I would not boo you. I still love you.
There's a couple instances of that. Like, I think when Garnett came back to Boston, he was booed pretty bad. Or no, it was Ray Allen when he came back to Boston, was booed really bad. And it's just like, come on, guys, you can't not appreciate what they've done for your city and your franchise. And I think the Rams outperformed all year. They were lucky to be there. They really took it to Detroit. I thought we should have seen a little bit more Kyron Williams action. I think they abandoned that run a little bit too early. Not that much was going there. But shout out Puka. Man, that kid can ball. He was just lights out in that game against you guys. I think Cooper Kupp might be showing his age a little bit, or maybe those injuries are catching up. He didn't quite have the game that I think they needed. But Puka, that kid's special. Just a shout out to him, and Amon Ra, obviously on your side. But we'll see more of him.
They're both absurd.
Up.
They're both absurd. But either way, we are deep into this episode, and we are just getting to the picks. So let's get to the picks. Much as I would love to talk about this game more. So we'll get the picks on screen here. Again, only 4 games. We'll do a quick preview. Obviously, the 1 seeds are in. We got the Ravens and the 49ers who didn't play this last week. And the picks, you and I both have picked the 49ers and the Bills. Surprisingly, because the Bills and Chiefs is considered the closest game this week. All the rest aren't really that close. But you have picked the Buccaneers to upset the Lions. And I have taken the Texans to upset the Ravens.
And I love that pick for you, by the way, because I hate the Baltimore Ravens. And I think that CJ Stroud and D'Amico and what they're doing over there could be the team to beat that Ravens team. After that restful bye and playing at home, I don't know. That team's a tough one. But I mad respect to you for picking that. But
see, I'll be honest. This is 100% gamesmanship because I've been touting the Bills all year. I can't bet against the Bills. I've been touting the Lions all year. I can't bet against the Lions. I've been touting the 49ers all year. I can't bet against the 49ers. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, I don't want to go another week with literally picking all favorites. And I kind of went back to what you said last week. It's like, Drew, you are horrendously bad at picking the Texans. And so I said, okay, my gut tells me it's the Ravens. And so I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm terrible at picking the Texans. I want to pick the Ravens. Therefore, let's fucking reverse it and pick the Texans.
Yeah, I love the reverse psychology. We were both, I think, awful at picking the Texans all year. So one win this year. We'll see who it is. I also looked at the Packers upsetting the 49ers a little bit just because maybe they're a bit of a paper dragon over there in San Francisco. And if they play a smash mouth game, I could see them taking that. We'll get to the bets in a little bit, but you'll see that I've kind of hedged a little bit. I do take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over your Detroit Lions. I wouldn't have taken this. Honestly, if the Eagles were playing the Lions, I would have taken the Lions, obviously. But Preston, this is probably one of those false trap things where you take the team that looks good the week before and then they just get absolutely housed on the road the next week. But I just think that if Baker can play like they were playing and that defensive front can continue to pressure Goff and stop the run, that team can put up enough points to run with the Lions in a shootout, or they can play a tough-nosed 13-9 kind of game. And I see the possibility of the Bucs taking – I just don't think they should be that low. I think it's like +6, +7 was the last time I saw the line. I think that's a little disrespectful for that Tampa Bay team, and that's what they've been riding all year long. They got that no one believes in us chip on the shoulder, and it's a hell of a motivator, just like the Texans have.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say I think coming into this year, people viewed the Eagles' offensive line as the best in the league. I think what we saw, especially what we saw against Aaron Donald, like how many times did you hear Aaron fucking Donald's name last weekend? That is because
not at all.
The Detroit Lions pay their offensive line. They pay their offensive linemen well. They draft them high. They have multiple first-round picks on that O-line. And I think if any offensive line is going to stuff a good pass rush, it's the Detroit Lions. Now, Baker Mayfield, if he can pass it and his receivers can catch it, that's a different story. But I think we can stop the defensive line of the Buccaneers and the blitz of the Buccaneers. I think that's what we did well. We did well against the Rams with that. That's how Goff was able to do what he was able to do. But
True.
But yeah, I mean,
the winner of this game goes to the Super Bowl. That's my hunch. Throwing that out there.
Over the 49ers or Packers. Okay, you and I will agree to disagree on that one, as much as I love my Lions, but either way, that's a fucking... You're literally, because you're picking the Buccaneers, you basically just said, caught in 4K, you are taking the Buccaneers to the Super Bowl right now. Go place a bet on that. I even placed a bet on it.
I already have. Let's
go.
And of course, when Baker Mayfield loses me all my money next week, I'll be like, "You're bad at this." But
yeah.
Right before we get to best bets with Bookie Bob, though, any chance Mahomes goes into Buffalo?
Oh, like this is 100%. Vegas has this as the closest game. I will get Vegas's picks up here as well. Vegas has this as the closest game. It's the only one where the winner is like less than minus 200. Like I think the Lions are minus 270. Like the Ravens are minus like 390. 49ers minus 490. Like they're extensive. Which amazing. 49ers are literally minus 490. Hilarious. But yeah, like Patrick Mahomes can absolutely go into Buffalo and win. But like Josh Allen and these Bills have played Patrick Mahomes and these Chiefs well forever. And at the end of the day, they beat them earlier this year. This Bills team looks like a better version of past Bills teams, at least what we've seen in the second half of the season and yesterday. And this Chiefs team looks like a worse version of this Chiefs team. And for the first time ever, this game is going to be in Buffalo in the playoffs, not in Arrowhead. And so because of that, that's why I'm taking Buffalo. But absolutely, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. This would be the earliest he's ever been knocked out of the playoffs if he loses. You can absolutely pick the Chiefs and be an intelligent human being.
Yeah. Insane stats there. The fact that they've ever played on the road, the fact that this would be the earliest exit for Patty. I just agree with you narrative-wise. Like, this is the year the Bills get that monkey off their back, right? They're at home. They're pissed, especially at this team. And I just think that it's Buffalo's road to the Super Bowl. But I think that brings us to Best Bets with Bookie Bob as we close out the podcast. We always do with our degenerate tendencies coming to light. Drew last week, unfortunately, missed your bet. All favorites was over by the first game. Not that I did any better. The Eagles, I picked the two teams that absolutely got trounced by their underdogs, which was the Cowboys and the Eagles. I did manage to salvage a little bit by throwing 250 on a Dak, Stafford, and Goff to throw 6+ touchdowns combined, which was love the garbage time from Dak to save that, but then that pretty much hit pretty early given the electricity of that Detroit Rams game. So heading into this week, let me go ahead and start with my picks because yours is complicated. Just following up on that Bills discussion we just had, I'm in $5 Bills money line. 144, which means I'm looking at an $8.47 cent return. So that's $3.47 profit. The other bet I picked was just based on, I think at this stage in the game, we're not going to see too many blows. So I took all our huge underdogs, Texans, Pack, Bucks, teased them up to plus 17.5 and combined that into a parlay for plus 104 and threw $5 on that. So that's Texans, Packers, Bucks plus 17.5 each. So they got to lose by 2 touchdowns and a field goal, and I can still win those bets for both all three of those massive underdogs. $5 on at plus 104. Over to you, Drew.
Yeah, so I went with a bunch of specials this week. The one thing, I like to bet players a lot more than I like to bet games. And so this week I actually liked some of the specials. So I have 4 bets, all $5, all the same bet with a little bit of a tweak. So the first one is Purdy, Allen, Mahomes to combine for 6 passing TDs. And that's plus 110. Then Purdy, Stroud, Mahomes, 6+ TDs at plus 140. Love, Allen, Goff, 6 TDs plus 155. And Lamar, Allen, Mahomes, 6 TDs plus 175. The thing I like about this is at the end of the day, it's like, okay, if like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or both go off, all of a sudden I've won. Like it's done. And I just think like I'm betting on a few of these QBs, not all of them to get 2 touchdowns. I'm betting on one of these guys to go off for 3 or 4, which I think can happen. Like that, there can be shootouts in some of these games. Maybe I lose, who knows? But I just like the idea that I'm literally just covering the spread. I don't expect to win them all, but I expect to be positive come the end of it.
No, I like this bet a lot. I placed the similar one last week on our Twitter. For those of you that are watching, I will probably place a couple of these alongside with you. I don't know about the Lamar Allen Mahomes just because I'm afraid of Lamar and Josh just running all over the place or getting the ball close and doing a tush push or a handoff into Gus Edwards, who could poach a couple there. But I do actually like the Love Allen Goff 6+ TDs. I just think that Jordan Love has shown that he can put it up and he's not afraid. And they might be in a situation where they get a couple garbage time TDs.
Oh yeah.
And then the Purdy, Stroud, Mahomes, another sort of situation where it's like, look, Stroud puts up 3, you get 1 or 2 from a Purdy or Mahomes. So I like where you're going with that. And so let's see what kind of money we can make heading into the divisional round. I'm excited, man. I'm fucking hyped.
Yeah, it's going to be a good divisional round, but everybody, that is it for this episode of the Fourth and Goal podcast, episode 20. Yes, we are already at 20. But thank you for tuning in. Again, we'll be back next week to talk the results of this round and the conference championship games. For those of you watching this before the divisional games, I will as well be live on stream for every one of these games at Fourth and Goal 101 on Twitch. It's the same as what you'll find here on YouTube. Appreciate if you all come out there. Our community is growing massively lately, so thanks to all of you who are part of that community. And anything else you want to say, Rob?
No, let's go. I'm excited to watch the last couple weeks of the National Football League.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll see you all next week. Later.